Kang Doyun never wanted to leave Earth. He was a simple man with simple needs, a steady job, enough money to pay for his sister's medical bills and maybe a quiet weekend once in a while. But life had other plans. When the human diplomatic ship needed engineers, the pay was too good to refuse. His younger sister Mireille needed expensive treatments, and someone had to pay for them. Now he was here, 20,000 light years from home, fixing broken machines on a space station the size of a small city. The station was called Viridian Cross, and it was where dozens of alien species came to trade and talk. Do-hyun had seen more strange creatures in 3 months than he thought possible. Some had 6 legs, some had no legs at all. Some breathed methane instead of oxygen. He learned to stop being surprised. Today was supposed to be easy. There was a big diplomatic party happening in the main hall. All the important people from different planets were there, wearing fancy clothes and drinking expensive drinks. Do-hyun was grateful he didn't have to attend. He hated parties. His job was to stay in the maintenance bay and fix things if they broke, and of course something broke. His communicator beeped. Do-hyun, we need you in Section 7. Gravity stabilizer is acting up. He grabbed his tools and headed out. Section 7 was in the restricted area where the really important aliens stayed. He had special clearance because sometimes machines didn't care about politics. When they broke, someone had to fix them. The corridors in Section 7 were different, fancier. The walls were made of smooth crystal that glowed softly. Do-hyun followed the maintenance map on his tablet, taking turns through passages he'd never seen before. The stabilizer should be just ahead, but then he took a wrong turn. The crystal walls all looked the same and his tablet glitched for a moment. When he realized his mistake, he was standing in front of a large door he definitely shouldn't be near. It was covered in strange symbols that seemed to move and shift. He should have turned back. He knew that. But he heard a humming sound from inside like machinery under strain. His engineer instincts kicked in. If something was breaking, he should at least check it out. The door opened when he touched it. Inside was a massive circular chamber. The ceiling was so high he could barely see it. In the center of the room stood a woman, if you could call her that. She was at least 7 feet tall with skin that looked like it was made of crystal. It shifted between blue and purple and silver. She wore robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight. She was the most beautiful and terrifying thing he had ever seen. She wasn't alone. Around her stood several other aliens of the same species, all dressed in formal robes. They were chanting something in a language that made his ears hurt. In front of the tall woman was a pedestal, and on that pedestal sat a crystal the size of his head. It glowed with an inner light that pulsed in rhythm with the chanting. Do-hyun froze. He definitely should not be here. This was clearly some kind of ceremony, some kind of important alien ritual. He started to back away slowly, but then he stumbled. His foot caught on the edge of a floor panel and he fell forward. His hand shot out to catch himself and he grabbed the first thing he could reach. The crystal. The moment his skin touched it, everything exploded with light. The crystal blazed so bright that Do-hyun had to close his eyes. He felt something rush through him like electricity but warm, like someone had poured liquid sunlight into his veins. He heard gasps and shouts in that alien language. When the light faded, he was still holding the crystal, but now it was glowing even brighter than before, pulsing with a steady rhythm. The tall woman was staring at him with eyes that were completely silver. Her skin had turned a deep gold color. Everyone else in the room looked shocked. Some looked angry. One alien, a male with dark purple crystal skin and wearing military decorations, looked absolutely furious. The tall woman spoke. Her voice was like music, but Do-hyun's translator chip worked overtime to convert it. Who are you? I'm Do-hyun. I'm a maintenance engineer. I got lost. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt anything. She took a step toward him. Her emotions hit him like a wave. He could feel them. Shock, confusion, curiosity, and something else he couldn't name. How could he feel what she was feeling? That wasn't possible. The crystal has chosen, she said quietly. It has completed the bond. What bond? What are you talking about? The purple alien, the angry military one, pushed forward. This is impossible. The ritual was meant for me. I was chosen by the council. The tall woman held up her hand and everyone went silent. She looked at Do-hyun with those silver eyes. I am Queen Lyria of the Ashvari Empire. That crystal is called the Heart of Ashvar. It is used in our most sacred ritual to choose a mate for the queen. It has never chosen anyone outside our species before, but it has chosen you. Do-hyun felt like the floor had disappeared beneath him. Mate, no, there's been a mistake. I just touched it by accident. I was trying not to fall. The heart does not make mistakes, Lyria said. Her voice was calm, but he could feel her emotions churning beneath the surface. She was just as shocked as he was. The bond is complete. According to the laws of my people, you are now my mate. Can we undo it? Reverse it somehow? The other aliens whispered to each other. The purple one looked like he wanted to kill Do-hyun right there. Lyria shook her head slowly. The bond is unbreakable. What the heart joins, no one can separate. Guards appeared from nowhere. Human guards this time, and they looked panicked. Someone must have alerted the human diplomatic team. They surrounded Do-hyun, not sure if they should protect him or arrest him. Sir, you need to come with us, one guard said. Do-hyun looked back at Lyria. He could still feel her emotions. A strange connection he didn't understand. She was watching him with an expression he couldn't read. This isn't over, she said. We will speak again soon. They took him away, and as they did, he heard the purple alien shouting. He heard arguments breaking out. He heard the crystals hum fading into the distance. Back in the holding room, human diplomats surrounded him. They asked 1,000 questions. What happened? Why did he go in there? Did he know what he'd done? Do-hyun sat in silence, his head in his hands. All he wanted was to fix a gravity stabilizer and go back to his quarters. Now he was apparently married to an alien queen. His sister was going to find this hilarious if he ever made it home to tell her. 3 days later, Do-hyun stood on the deck of an HFY ship, watching his old life disappear behind him. The human diplomats had worked frantically to find a solution, but in the end, everyone agreed. He had to go to the HFY homeworld. Refusing would insult Queen Lyria and her entire empire. It could start a war. So here he was, heading toward a planet he'd never heard of until last week, bound to an alien queen by some magical crystal he'd touched by accident. The ship was beautiful but cold. Everything was made of crystal and metal that hummed with energy. The other passengers, all HFY, avoided him. Some stared with open curiosity. Others looked at him with disgust. He spent most of the journey in his assigned quarters, which were far too fancy for someone who used to share a cramped apartment with his sister. He tried to message Mirai, but communication across this distance was expensive and slow. He managed to send one short message. I'm okay. Something crazy happened. I'll explain later. Love you. Queen Lyria didn't visit him during the journey, but he could feel her sometimes through that strange bond. It was like having someone else's emotions in the back of his mind. He'd be sitting quietly, and suddenly he'd feel a wave of frustration or sadness that wasn't his own. It was disturbing and intimate in a way that made him uncomfortable. When they finally arrived at HFY Prime, Do-hyun pressed his face to the window and stared. The planet was beautiful. The cities were made entirely of crystal towers that caught the light and threw rainbows across the sky. Forests of strange trees with silver leaves covered the spaces between cities. Everything glowed softly even in daylight. The landing was smooth, and within minutes he was escorted off the ship by guards in elaborate armor. They took him through streets where thousands of HFY stopped to watch. Word had spread. Everyone knew about the human who had bonded with their queen. The reactions were mixed. Some faces showed curiosity. Many showed anger. The palace was enormous, a massive structure of gold and crystal that reached toward the clouds. Inside it was even more overwhelming. Halls stretched in every direction. Servants moved silently through corridors. Everything was beautiful and cold and nothing like home. They gave him rooms in the royal wing. 3 rooms just for him, each bigger than the entire apartment he'd shared with Mirai. A bedroom with a bed that floated slightly off the ground. A sitting room with furniture that seemed to grow from the floor. A bathroom with water that flowed without any pipes he could see. A servant appeared, an older HFY with kind eyes. I am Talus, he said in heavily accented but understandable speech. I have been assigned to help you adjust. Thank you, Do-hyun said, grateful for any friendly face. Can you tell me what I'm supposed to do here? Talus smiled sadly. You are the queen's mate. You will attend court. You will learn our customs. You will stand beside her at ceremonies. I don't know any of your customs. I don't know how to act at court. Then I will teach you. Come, you have your first court appearance tomorrow. We have much to prepare. The next weeks were exhausting. Do-hyun had to learn basic HFY phrases. He had to learn how to bow and when to bow and to whom. He had to memorize dozens of noble houses and their complicated relationships. He had to wear robes that were beautiful but uncomfortable, nothing like the simple work clothes he preferred. Court was the worst. He had to stand near Lyria's throne while nobles presented petitions and discussed matters he didn't understand. Everyone watched him. He could feel their judgment. Some nobles were openly hostile, whispering insults in Ashvari that they thought he couldn't understand. But Talus had been teaching him, and he caught enough words to know what they thought of him. Contamination. Abomination. Mistake. Lyria never looked at him during court. She sat on her throne like a statue, her face showing nothing, but through the bond he felt everything. The weight of responsibility crushing her. The loneliness that had been her companion for years. The quiet desperation beneath her perfect mask. During these moments, she would sometimes glance at him. Their eyes would meet for just a second. Then she would look away. At night, Do-hyun would lie in his floating bed and stare at the ceiling. He'd received a message from Mirai. She was getting worse. The doctors wanted to try a new treatment, but it was expensive. Very expensive. More expensive than he could afford, even with his engineering salary. He was trapped here while his sister was dying. The thought made him want to scream. One evening, he couldn't take the palace anymore. He found his way to a balcony high up in the tower. Below him, the crystal city sparkled like stars had fallen to the ground. Above him, real stars filled the sky, but none of them were his son. You should not be here alone. He turned to find Lyria standing behind him. She wasn't wearing her formal court robes. Instead, she wore a simple dress that still somehow looked royal. Her skin was a soft blue in the evening light. "I needed air," he said. She moved to stand beside him at the rail. For a long moment, neither spoke. Through the bond, he felt her exhaustion, her fear, her confusion. "They hate me," he said finally. "Your people, most of them think I'm some kind of mistake." "Not all of them," she replied. "But many, yes. Why don't you just let me go? Say the bond was fake or something. I could leave and you could marry that purple guy who was supposed to be chosen." "Commander Vectus," she said. "And I cannot. The heart does not lie. If I denied its choice, I would be denying our most sacred tradition. Even if the tradition chose wrong." She looked at him then, really looked at him. Did it choose wrong? Do-hyun didn't know how to answer that. Through the bond, he felt her reaching out, trying to understand him. He felt her curiosity about this human who fixed machines and spoke plainly, and didn't bow and scrape like everyone else at court. "I don't belong here," he said quietly. "I'm just an engineer. I fix things. I'm not royal or special or anything your people expected." "Perhaps that is exactly why the heart chose you." Before he could ask what she meant, she continued. "My people are dying, Do-hyun. We have been dying for generations. A sickness is spreading through our population. Our best scientists cannot find a cure. I must appear strong while everything crumbles around me. I must make impossible decisions every day, and I must do it alone because a queen cannot show weakness." Her voice cracked slightly on that last word. It was the first real emotion he'd heard from her in public. "That sounds terrible," he said, because what else could he say? "It is, but you—" "Through this bond, I feel things I have not felt in years. Simple things. Frustration when the court is boring. Amusement when someone says something foolish. Homesickness for a place I have never been. You feel so freely, so openly. It is strange to experience. Is that good or bad?" She almost smiled. "Almost." "I do not know yet." An alarm suddenly blared through the palace. Guards rushed onto the balcony surrounding them. Talus appeared, his face pale. "Your Majesty, there has been an attack on the Queen's mate's quarters." An explosion. If he had been there. The rest of the sentence hung unspoken. If Do-hyun had been in his rooms, he would be dead. Lyria's skin flashed bright red, anger burning through the bond so strong that Do-hyun gasped. She turned to her guards. "Find who did this. Search every corner of the palace. I want them found tonight." As the guards scattered, she turned back to Do-hyun. For the first time since he'd met her, he saw real fear in her silver eyes. "Stay close to me," she said quietly. "Until we find who wants you dead, you are not safe anywhere else." Do-hyun nodded, his heart still racing. Someone had just tried to kill him. Someone in this beautiful crystal palace wanted him gone badly enough to plant a bomb. Through the bond, he felt Lyria's determination. She would protect him. But he also felt something else. Something that scared her more than any assassin. She was starting to care whether he lived or died. The investigation into the bombing took 3 days. They found the device hidden in a ventilation shaft near Do-hyun's quarters. It was sophisticated military grade. Whoever planted it knew what they were doing, but they couldn't trace it to anyone specific. Too many people had access to that part of the palace. Do-hyun moved to rooms closer to Lyria's own quarters. Guards were posted outside his door at all times. He wasn't allowed to go anywhere without an escort. The golden cage had become even smaller, but Talus still visited him every day, teaching him more about Ashvari culture and language. The old servant had become something close to a friend, one of the few people in the palace who treated Do-hyun like a person instead of a problem. One evening, Talus arrived looking nervous. He glanced at the guards outside, then closed the door carefully behind him. "I need to show you something," Talus said quietly. "But you must promise to tell no one where you learned this." Do-hyun sat up straighter. "What is it?" Talus pulled out a small device and pressed a button. A holographic image appeared in the air between them. It showed pages from an old book, the text written in ancient Ashvari script. "I have been a scholar all my life," Talus said. "When you bonded with the queen, I became curious. The heart of Ashvar has been used for thousands of years, but no one really understands how it works. So I started researching in the old archives, the ones that no one reads anymore." He flipped through the holographic pages. "The heart is not just a tool for choosing mates. It is much older and much more important. It was created by the first Ashvari as a survival mechanism." "What do you mean, survival?" "The heart responds to genetic compatibility. It chooses mates who will produce the strongest offspring. For most of our history, it chose within our own species, but the texts say it can choose from any species if necessary." Do-hyun felt cold. "If necessary for what?" Talus looked at him with sad eyes. "For survival. The sickness killing my people, it is not a disease. It is genetic degradation. Thousands of years ago, the noble houses decided that only certain families could marry each other. They believed it would keep the bloodlines pure and strong. But it did the opposite. We have been breeding ourselves to death." The pieces clicked together in Do-hyun's mind. "The heart chose me because my genetics could help. More than help. You might be the key to saving us. Human DNA is different enough to introduce new genetic variation, but similar enough to be compatible. At least that is what the ancient texts suggest." Do-hyun stood up and paced the room. "Does Lyria know this?" "I do not believe so. This knowledge has been lost for generations. The noble houses who created our laws would not want people to know that their precious bloodlines are the cause of our doom. We have to tell her. If you do, you must be careful. This information could tear the court apart. The nobles will deny it. Commander Vectis and his supporters will claim it is lies meant to justify your presence." Before Do-hyun could respond, his communicator buzzed. A message from Earth, from the hospital where Mirai was being treated. He opened it with shaking hands. The new treatment was working. His sister was going to be okay. She was going to live. Relief flooded through him so strongly that Lyria must have felt it too. A moment later, his door opened and she entered, having dismissed the guards with a wave. "What happened?" she asked. "I felt my sister," he said, smiling for the first time in weeks. "She's going to be okay. The treatment worked." Lyria's expression softened. "I'm glad. I know how much you worried for her." Talus bowed quickly. "Your Majesty, I should leave." "No," Do-hyun said. "She needs to hear this too. Talus has discovered something important." The old scholar explained everything again, showing Lyria the ancient texts and the research he'd done. She listened in silence, her skin shifting through various colors as emotions washed over her. Shock, anger, grief, understanding. "The nobles did this," she said finally. "My ancestors did this to us. They valued their bloodlines more than the survival of our species. If we make this public," Talus said, "it will cause chaos. But it also explains why the heart chose me," Do-hyun added. "It wasn't random. It wasn't a mistake. It was trying to save your species." Lyria looked at him, and through the bond he felt her mind racing through possibilities. If we tell people this, they will demand that we prove it. They will want to know if this can truly save us. "Human scientists could help," Do-hyun said. "We're good at genetics. Give us access to your medical data. Let us study the problem. We can figure out a solution. Commander Vectis will never allow it. He and the other noble houses have too much to lose. If people learn that the bloodlines they worship are killing us, their power will crumble. Then they'll fight to keep this secret, Do-hyun said, which means they'll fight to get rid of me. The truth hung in the air between them. This wasn't just about an accidental bond anymore. This was about the survival of an entire species. And there were powerful people who would rather let their species die than admit they were wrong. Lyria stepped closer to him. She reached out and placed her hand on his chest. He could feel her through the bond, feel the conflict tearing her apart. I could release you, she said softly. There are old rituals, dangerous ones, but they could break the bond. You could go home to your sister. You would be free of all this. Would you survive the ritual? She didn't answer, which was answer enough. Then no, he said firmly. I'm not letting you die just so I can go home. Why not? You owe us nothing. This situation was forced upon you. Your life would be simpler, safer without me. Through the bond, Do-hyun felt what she wasn't saying. She was giving him the choice she'd never been given. She was offering him freedom because she'd learned from him that love wasn't about cages and obligations. It was about choosing to stay. My sister is safe, he said. That was the only reason I needed to go home immediately. And now that I know the truth about why the heart chose me, I understand. I can help. I'm an engineer. I fix things that are broken. Your genetics are broken and maybe I can help fix them. This is not your responsibility. Maybe not, but I'm choosing to make it mine. Something shifted in Lyria's expression. The mask she always wore, the cold queen persona, cracked. He saw the woman beneath. Scared, hopeful, lonely for so long. She opened her mouth to speak, but alarms blared through the palace. The door burst open and guards rushed in, weapons drawn. Your Majesty, Commander Vectis has launched a coup. His forces are attacking the palace. Explosions rocked the building. Do-hyun stumbled and Lyria caught him. Her skin flashed bright red, battle-ready. How many soldiers does he have? She demanded. Half the military. He broadcast a message across the planet. He claims the human has corrupted you with foreign ideas. He says he is freeing you from an unnatural bond. More guards poured into the room surrounding Lyria. One of them grabbed Do-hyun. We need to separate them, the guard commander said. Keep the human in a secure location while the queen deals with this. No, Lyria said. He stays with me. Your Majesty, he is not a warrior. He will be a liability in battle. Before Lyria could argue, a massive explosion shook the palace. Part of the ceiling collapsed. Guards rushed to shield the queen. In the chaos, Do-hyun was pulled away by soldiers he didn't recognize. He caught a glimpse of Lyria fighting to reach him, but there were too many people between them. They dragged him through corridors filled with smoke and debris. He tried to fight, but he was just a human against Ashvari warriors. They took him down to the lower levels of the palace into areas he'd never seen. Then they threw him into a cell and locked the door. Through the bond, he felt Lyria's panic. She was searching for him, fighting to reach him. But the distance was growing. The feeling was getting fainter. Then suddenly the bond went silent. Empty, like someone had cut a wire. Do-hyun pressed against the cell door, screaming her name. But he couldn't feel her anymore. He didn't know if she was alive or dead. He didn't know if the bond was broken or if she was just too far away. All he knew was that he was alone in the dark. And the woman he'd been starting to care about was somewhere out there, possibly dying, and he couldn't do anything to help. Do-hyun sat in the dark cell and refused to panic. Panicking wouldn't help. He needed to think like an engineer. Every problem had a solution. Every system had weaknesses. The cell was made of thick crystal walls with a force field door. No obvious way out. But there was ventilation, which meant air circulation. There was lighting, which meant power. Where there was power, there were systems, and systems could be manipulated. He felt the walls carefully, looking for any irregularities. In the far corner, he found a small panel. It was locked, but locks were just mechanisms. He pulled off his belt buckle and used the metal edge to pry at the panel. It took an hour, but eventually it popped open. Inside was a maintenance port. Beautiful. Every building, even alien ones, needed maintenance access. He couldn't escape yet, but he could learn about the systems. Days passed. Maybe. It was hard to tell time in the cell. Guards brought him food and water, but didn't speak to him. He worked on the maintenance port whenever they weren't watching, learning how the prison systems connected. The bond with Lyria remained silent. Sometimes he thought he felt a distant pulse like a heartbeat very far away. It gave him hope that she was still alive. But he couldn't reach her, couldn't feel her emotions anymore. On the fourth day, one of the guards stayed longer than usual. He was younger than the others, his crystal skin a nervous light green. "Is the food acceptable?" the guard asked. It was the first time anyone had spoken to him as a person. Do-hyun saw an opportunity. "It's fine, thank you. What's your name?" "I should not talk to you. I'm just asking your name." "That's not against the rules, is it?" The guard hesitated. "Kelris, I'm Do-hyun. But you probably know that." Over the next days, Kelris returned. They talked. Small conversations at first. Do-hyun learned that Kelris had a brother dying from the genetic sickness. He learned that many soldiers were conflicted about the coup. They served Commander Vectis because he promised strength, but they weren't sure he was right. "Do you believe I corrupted your queen?" Do-hyun asked one day. Kelris looked uncomfortable. "I do not know what to believe. Commander Vectis says humans are inferior, but you do not seem inferior. You are polite. You ask questions. You treat me like a person, not a servant. That's because you are a person. Everyone is, regardless of species. That is not what we are taught." Do-hyun moved closer to the force field. "Kelris, I need to tell you something. Your brother's sickness, the one killing your people, it's not a disease. It's genetic. The noble families, the ones who make the laws about who can marry whom, they caused it. By limiting bloodlines, they weakened your species." "That is a lie. Commander Vectis said you would say things like this." "Then let me prove it. I'm an engineer. Look at my maintenance access." He pointed to the open panel. "I've been studying your prison systems. Not to escape, just to understand. Your people built everything to be perfect, beautiful, symmetrical. But perfect systems are brittle. They can't adapt. Your genetics are the same. Too perfect, too controlled. That's why you're dying." Kelris looked at the panel, then at Do-hyun. Something shifted in his expression. Before he could respond, alarms blared. Other guards rushed past. Kelris looked torn, then made a decision. "Talus sent me," he whispered quickly. "He told me to watch over you. He said you are important. There is a plan. Be ready." Then he was gone. 2 hours later, the force field deactivated. Talus appeared with 3 other Ashvari, all wearing the clothing of palace servants. "Quickly," Talus said. "We do not have much time." They rushed through maintenance tunnels that Do-hyun recognized from his studies. The old scholar had planned this carefully. They emerged in a part of the city far from the palace, in a district where the buildings were older and less beautiful. "Where is Lyria?" Do-hyun asked immediately. "Under guard in the palace. Vectis has not harmed her. He wants to force her to denounce you and accept him as mate instead. She has refused." The standoff continues. What's his support like? The military follows him, but the common people are uncertain. Many have lost family to the sickness. They want hope, not more of the same. An idea formed in Do-hyun's mind. A crazy, dangerous idea, but sometimes the best solutions were the ones that seemed impossible. "Can you get me access to a planetary communication system? The main networks are controlled by Vectis. I don't need official networks. There are always underground channels. Pirates, smugglers, people who don't like government control. Humans aren't the only ones who have those, right?" Talus smiled slowly. "We have such people. But what will you do?" "Something very human. I'm going to tell the truth. It took another day to set up. They found a group of Ashvari rebels who had been fighting against the noble houses for years. They had broadcast equipment that could hijack local networks. It wouldn't reach the whole planet, but it would reach enough people." Do-hyun sat in front of a camera wearing his simple engineer clothes. No fancy robes. No attempt to look royal. Just himself. When they went live, he took a breath and began. "My name is Kang Do-hyun. I'm a human. An engineer. A few weeks ago, I accidentally bonded with your queen during a sacred ritual. I didn't mean to. I was just lost in trying not to fall down. But it happened, and now a lot of people are angry about it." He leaned forward, looking directly at the camera. "Commander Vectis says I corrupted your queen. He says humans are inferior and I should never have been allowed near her. Maybe he's right. I'm not special. I fix machines for a living. I'm nobody important. But I learned something while I was here. Your people are dying. The sickness that's killing you, it's not a disease. It's in your genetics. And it's there because for thousands of years, the noble families only married each other. They thought it would keep bloodlines pure. Instead, it's killing you." He could imagine the shock this was causing. Good. People needed to be shocked. The heart of Ashvar. That crystal that bonded me to your queen. It chose me because human genetics are different enough to help. I'm not saying this to make myself sound important. I'm saying it because it's true. And there are people who don't want you to know this truth. People who would rather let you die than admit their precious bloodlines are the problem. He stood up, pacing in front of the camera the way he did when explaining technical problems to his sister. I'm just an engineer. When something is broken, I fix it. Your genetics are broken, but they can be fixed. Human scientists can help. We can work together to find a solution. It won't be fast. It won't be easy. But it's possible. If you want to survive, you have to change. You have to adapt. He stopped and looked at the camera again. Humans are good at adapting. We're not the strongest species. We're not the smartest. We're not the most beautiful. But we survive because we change when we need to. We try new things. We make mistakes and learn from them. That's our strength. That's what I can offer you. Not perfection. Just a chance, he paused, then added quietly. Your queen understands this. That's why she accepted the bond even though it was unexpected. She's trying to save you. And Commander Vectis is trying to stop her because change scares him. He'd rather cling to the old ways and watch you die than admit those ways were wrong. The broadcast ended. Tallis looked at him with something like awe. That was very bold. It was the truth. Now we'll see if it matters. The response was immediate and chaotic. The broadcast spread through underground networks. People shared it, argued about it. The outer colonies, who had always resented the central noble houses, rallied behind Do-hyun's message. Protests erupted in the streets. Commander Vectis ordered his forces to find and kill Do-hyun. But the rebels kept moving him, hiding him in different safe houses. 3 days after the broadcast, Vectis made a public challenge. He would duel Do-hyun for the right to be queen's mate. If Do-hyun refused, he would prove himself a coward. If he accepted, Vectis would kill him in honorable combat. Tallis begged him not to accept. He is a trained warrior. You are an engineer. He will destroy you. I know, Do-hyun said, but if I refuse, everything I said loses power. I have to face him. You will die. Maybe, but sometimes you have to take risks to fix what's broken. He sent his acceptance through the same channels he'd used for the broadcast. The duel would happen in 3 days, in the plaza in front of the palace, public and broadcast across the planet. Through the bond, finally, he felt something. A distant presence. Lyria was alive, and she was terrified for him. He wished he could tell her not to worry. But honestly, he was terrified too. The plaza in front of the palace was filled with thousands of Ashvari. More watched from windows and balconies. Cameras broadcast the event to the entire planet. The crowd was divided. Some chanted for Vectis. Others, mainly common citizens from the outer districts, chanted a name they could barely pronounce. Do-hyun! Do-hyun! Do-hyun stood at one end of the plaza wearing simple clothes. He'd refused ceremonial armor. If he was going to do this, he'd do it as himself. Across from him, Commander Vectis stood in full battle armor, crystal plates that glowed with power. He held a weapon that looked like a spear made of pure energy. Do-hyun had a simple metal staff. That was it. The crowd went quiet as Queen Lyria emerged from the palace. She was flanked by guards loyal to Vectis. She couldn't stop the duel without appearing weak, without breaking the traditions of her people. But through the bond, which had grown stronger as he got closer, Do-hyun felt her fear. Her anger, her desperation. He smiled at her. Through the bond, he sent a feeling. Trust me. An elder Ashvari stepped forward to announce the rules. It was a traditional honor duel. First blood was not enough. The fight continued until one fighter yielded or died. There would be no interference. Vectis spoke, his voice amplified across the plaza. I do this for our people, to free our queen from this abomination, to restore the purity of our bloodlines. Do-hyun was given a chance to speak. He kept it simple. I'm just here to prove a point. Change doesn't have to mean destruction. And humans are harder to kill than we look. The elder signaled the start. Vectis charged immediately. Do-hyun dodged, barely. The energy spear cut through the air where his head had been. The crowd gasped. Vectis attacked again, a sweeping strike. Do-hyun rolled under it. He couldn't match Vectis for strength or speed. But he'd watched maintenance videos of Ashvari combat training while preparing. He'd analyzed their techniques. HFY fought with beauty and precision. Every movement was perfect, elegant, practiced. Perfect things were predictable. Vectis thrust forward in a classic attack pattern. Do-hyun stepped sideways at the last second, using his staff to deflect rather than block. The energy spear hit the ground, creating a small explosion. While Vectis was recovering, Do-hyun struck at his knee, the weak point between armor plates. It connected. Vectis stumbled, the crowd roared. No one expected the human to land a hit. Vectis's skin flashed dark red. Anger. He came at Do-hyun with a series of rapid attacks. Do-hyun gave ground, dodging and deflecting, letting Vectis tire himself out. HFY were stronger, but they used more energy. Humans had endurance. You cannot win, Vectis snarled. You are weak, inferior. Maybe, Do-hyun said, dodging another strike. But I'm stubborn. He used every trick he could think of. He threw dust in Vectis's eyes. He feinted left and went right. He fought dirty, fought human, fought to survive. Nothing elegant. Nothing beautiful. Just practical. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Vectis was still stronger, but he was getting tired. His attacks became less precise. Do-hyun had cuts and bruises, but nothing fatal. Through the bond, he felt Lyria's amazement. She'd never seen anyone fight like this. Neither had anyone else watching. Finally, Do-hyun saw his opportunity. Vectis overextended on a thrust. Do-hyun sidestepped, brought his staff around, and swept Vectis's legs. The commander fell. Do-hyun kicked the energy spear away and pressed his staff to Vectis's throat. The plaza went silent. He'd won. A human engineer had defeated an HFY military commander. Yield, Do-hyun said quietly. Vectis stared up at him with hatred. Kill me. Prove you are no better than us. I'm not here to prove I'm better. I'm here to prove I'm different. And that different doesn't mean enemy. He pulled the staff away and offered his hand. Yield. Join us in fixing what's broken, or choose exile. But I'm not going to kill you. The crowd held its breath. Vectis looked at the offered hand like it was poisonous. But slowly he reached up and took it. Do-hyun pulled him to his feet. I yield, Vectis said, and the words seemed to hurt him more than any physical wound. The crowd erupted. Some cheered. Some shouted in anger. But the duel was over. Do-hyun had won the right to remain as Queen's mate. Lyria ran to him. She didn't care about dignity or tradition. She wrapped her arms around him, and he felt her emotions flood through the bond. Relief, pride, joy, fear, love. You magnificent fool, she whispered. You could have died. But I didn't. Humans are good at not dying when we're supposed to. The next weeks were chaotic but productive. Human scientists arrived from Earth. They worked with HFY researchers to study the genetic problem. It was complex but solvable. It would take time, perhaps generations, but they found a path forward. The solution required HFY society to open up. Noble houses would have to allow marriages outside their circles. They would need to introduce genetic diversity from other species, primarily humans at first. Many nobles resisted, but the common people overwhelmingly supported the changes. They wanted to live. Do-hyun received a message from Mirai. She was healthy now and wanted to visit. I have to meet this alien queen who stole my brother, she wrote. And see this fancy palace. Maybe I'll find my own alien boyfriend, he laughed at that. Some things never changed. Lyria established a new program. Young humans would be invited to HFY Prime as partners, teachers, and friends. In exchange, HFY would learn to visit other worlds, to study different cultures, to become more than they had been. The Empire was transforming from an isolated, dying civilization into something new. 6 months after the duel, Lyria made an announcement that shocked both their species. She was pregnant. The medical teams couldn't fully explain it. Human and HFY biology should have been too different, but the heart of HFY had known something they didn't. The bond had changed both of them on a fundamental level, making the impossible possible. Do-hyun stood in the Royal Medical Center, staring at the images of the tiny life growing inside Lyria. Half human, half HFY, a bridge between two species. Are you afraid? Lyria asked, terrified, he admitted. I don't know how to be a father, especially to a hybrid alien baby, she smiled. It still amazed him how much she'd changed. The cold, distant queen was gone. In her place was a woman who laughed, who showed emotions, who wasn't afraid to be imperfect. We will learn together, just as we have learned everything else. They decided to name their daughter Hana. Simple, easy to pronounce in both Korean and Ashvari. She would grow up in a world that was changing, where the old divisions were breaking down. Do-hyun never returned to his old job. He became an advisor to the queen, helping her navigate problems with a human perspective. He also started a program teaching young Ashvari practical engineering. Many of them had never learned to fix things with their hands. Everything had always been done by servants or machines. You need to understand how things work, he'd tell his students, not just know that they work. Understanding leads to innovation. Mirai did visit, and she loved the palace. She made friends with young Ashvari who were curious about humans. She stayed for 3 months, then returned to Earth with promises to come back. Years passed. Hana grew into a bright, curious child who asked a million questions in 2 languages. The genetic treatments began to show results. The sicknesses spread, slowed, then stopped. New generations were born healthier than the last. The Ashvari Empire changed, slowly but inevitably. Other species began to see them differently, not as a dying civilization clinging to the past, but as pioneers of a new kind of society. One evening, Do-hyun stood on the same balcony where he'd first had a real conversation with Lyria. She joined him, as she often did. Their daughter was asleep, watched over by guards and servants who adored her. "Do you ever regret it?" Lyria asked. "That day you stumbled into the ritual chamber? The accident that changed everything?" Do-hyun thought about it honestly. He'd lost his old life. He'd been threatened, attacked, nearly killed. He'd been forced to fight, to make speeches, to become someone he never intended to be. But he'd also found purpose. He'd helped save an entire species. He'd found love in the most unexpected place. He'd discovered that sometimes the mistakes you make lead you exactly where you need to be. "Every day," he said with a smile. "But I'd do it all again." Through the bond, she felt his truth. No regrets that mattered, no desire to change the past. "The heart of Ashvar knew," she said softly. "When you touched it, it saw what we could not. Not just genetic compatibility, not just a solution to a problem. It saw a future where 2 different peoples could become one, where change was not death but rebirth." "Or maybe," Do-hyun said, "it was just an accident that worked out better than anyone expected. Sometimes broken things fix themselves in strange ways." She leaned against him, her crystal skin warm in the evening light. Below them, the city sparkled. Above them, stars filled the sky. Somewhere among those stars was Earth, where he'd been born. And here was Ashvar Prime, where he'd found a new home. 2 worlds. 2 species. One unexpected bond that changed everything. In the royal nursery, Hana slept peacefully, dreaming dreams in 2 languages. She was the first of a new generation. Not purely Ashvari, not purely human. Something new. Something better. The future was uncertain. There would be more challenges, more resistance, more problems to solve. But they would face them together, because sometimes the best destinies are the ones you never planned for.